to make a statement here that I want everyone to listen to. If you think that daily injections, micro injections of testosterone are somehow magically going to land you at your estrogen number that makes sense for libido, erection sensitivity, climax sensation, and pleasure of sex at whatever dose of testosterone that you choose, you're definitely wrong. I'm not a huge fan of daily injections except under one condition. Not every condition. It doesn't make sense to be dosing 150, 160, 170, 180, 200 milligrams testosterone, cypionate or anathate per week, and doing daily injections to prevent estradiol peaks. Okay, if you have HCG in your regimen, which most people do, a lot of folks do, and in my opinion, most people should, you're not just going to aromatize only to 30 picograms per milliliter, doing 175 milligrams a week, injecting every day. And if you think like sub-Q gets you less aromatization, you can throw that right out the window. I've got all manner of data that proves otherwise. Truth is, daily injections of testosterone can be useful, but you're not really going to get your estrogen where you need it to be by doing daily injections when you're dosing moderately to high levels of TRT. That's just not how it works. So in this video, let's break down daily injections. Let's break down where it makes sense, right? It largely doesn't make sense except one condition. And under that one condition, you should not be putting the testosterone in fat tissue. Sit back, relax, grab a beer, strap in, and let's get into it. All right, before we get started, Low Cortex Labs, which is my company, is a TRT guidance, sexual dysfunction resolution, and performance optimization company. Got a range of different products, but right now, the biggest discounts on coaching I have ever run, 50% off any of the coaching packages. That's the 1 month, the 3 month, the 6 months, or the 1 year. For those of you looking to get on board, resolving sexual dysfunction, erection issues, libido issues, but importantly, optimizing erections and libido on HRT, just hire me. These are discounted 50% right now. That's saving you thousands of dollars on every one of the packages. The code is Coach Discount. You see it on the screen. You can book in under a minute at livecortex.com, and you and I will be on the fact-finding call as soon as tomorrow. Source list. Look, if you need access to anything and everything, and you want to go at this alone, go for it. Here's a coupon code. It's Source30. It saves you 30% right now. Code is in the description of this video. Lastly, if you need to dial in on testosterone cypionate, which is the hardest ester to dial in on, I created an instructional course on how to do that specifically for libido and erections. Okay, first to start, let's look at some of the benefits, right? You know, there are benefits. I'm not going to pretend they're not of doing daily injections. Probably the most prominent one that people say in terms of like feels is like this guy. I feel better doing every day. I was doing 3 times a week and felt a little down on non-injection days. Now I'm on an even keel all the time. This is true. No matter what you're doing, like unless it's enough testosterone, for me, it's got to be like 150 every 3 days. And that's just barely enough testosterone to keep me energized and feeling fucking awesome in that 3-day gap. Largely though, you know, but that though is 300 milligrams a week. If you're doing TRT doses, spreading the doses out, for some people, they're going to be fine. But for a lot of folks, they're going to start getting tired, feel suboptimal, and not feel like themselves. For people that are building businesses or need energy and have kids to deal with or whatever it is, you kind of need your energy. So those troughs when you feel like shit are kind of non-starters. Whereas you're doing daily injections, you pretty much feel good and stable all the time. This is actually true. But feeling good all the time isn't the only goal that you're shooting for on TRT. You want to feel good, and you also want your dick to work, and sensation to be up, and libido to be good, and climax to be good, and the whole sexual system to work well. Now, the other major benefit, and I will admit that this is a benefit of doing daily injections, is estrogen itself is unlikely to go as high as it would be if you were doing every 3.5 days. At the same time, blood levels of hematocrit and hemoglobin are probably not going to go substantially over range, although they might come close depending on what your dose is. But that's leading to the major point, which is it really all depends on your dose. If you're dosing 200 milligrams a week, switch into daily, and say you have a little bit of HCG because you want to keep the boys functional, and you should, well, I mean, you're still going to aromatize to 55 to 75 plus picograms per milliliter of estradiol, and your dick is still not going to work if you're in that 80 percentile of people that responds negatively to estradiol significantly over range. So it's like it then defeats the purpose. Then you're pinning every day. Every day you have to pin. You got to load testosterone. You got to throw it in your glute or wherever. And unless you're using insulin syringes, you're probably causing some tissue scarring. And a lot of people like hear this methodology, and because it's gospel on Reddit, try it, and the estrogen's still above range and their dick still doesn't work. Okay, what the hell's the point in that? Let's talk about the one condition in which daily injections make sense. Here are the criteria. Number one, you're a person who's determined that on 200 milligrams or so of testosterone, just kind of higher doses of the long esters, you can't tolerate AIs. Because on those doses, your estrogen's almost definitely going to go over range, and sometimes substantially over range. You're going to need to take the estradiol down for, again, that 80 percentile of people that need estrogen in that sweet spot of 25 to call it 35. So you need to take an AI, right? Or something that lowers estrogen, maybe a DHT derivative like Masteron or Primobolan, and then you can get the estrogen down in that range. But if you don't respond to AIs or estrogen-lowering compounds, which a lot of people do, well, they respond to them, but they respond in negative ways, like tissues don't regulate estrogen correctly, and you get starvation of estradiol at the brain tissue, penile tissue, you get interruption of nitric oxide, you get ED and libido problems. In that case, you're going to have to go to lower doses of testosterone. And that is the 85 to 120 milligram a week range. I mean, that's the good range for that subset of people, which is more people than you might think. And in that regard, guess what? I have guys, and I just had a guy literally yesterday on 120 milligrams a week. That's not a high dose of testosterone, but he was doing it 3 times weekly. And in that case, the estradiol with a little bit of HCG was over range. Sensation problems, erection problems, libido problems, climax problems. But in that case, at 120, if that guy just pinned daily, at 120, that is 17 milligrams a day, well, there he might actually get in the estrogen zone. That makes sense. You see, the lower the dose you go on testosterone, because you're trying to just make less estradiol, you're not just exclusively trying to control peaks, you're trying to make less. You have less substrate for aromatization on lower doses. The more it makes sense at those lower doses to do daily injections, to compound upon your intention of managing estrogen just with your protocol. You get to 130 for some people, 140, definitely 150 and above, and the daily injections, boys, are just not helping you get the estrogen where you need it. It might keep it lower, right? 10 to 15 picograms per milliliter from going to 65, but you're still at 45 to 55. Doesn't fucking make sense. And by the way, I'm not talking from theory. I get guys coming to me all the time. I see their protocols and I document their protocols. So I know that guys that are doing 130 to 150 to 170 to 180 to 200 that are doing daily injections still have estrogen over range. And most of them have erection problems and libido problems and sensation problems. Once you get down, first of all, everybody in that position that can't tolerate AIs and can't therefore do high doses, you need to find the dose of testosterone below which you feel shitty and above which you get dick problems, specifically because estradiol is in your range. And for some guys, it's a really, really narrow window. Once you find that dose, and it's usually 85 to 120, but call it somewhere in the middle at 112 milligrams a week, which is 8 units on an insulin syringe and therefore 16 milligrams of test per day. Then, even with your HCG, the estradiol is going to be right around the top of the range. It might go slightly over your sexual sweet spot range, but you can still have sex and things are okay, but they're not like perfect and sensation isn't crazy. You're not like, dude, I want to have sex all the time and erections are out of this world. You don't need Cialis. There is when you compound upon your low dose of 112 milligrams and do daily injections so that the estradiol ends up ultimately lower. And now, not only do you have like a low enough testosterone dose where you have less substrate for aromatization, so the estrogen's just going to fall naturally low, maybe in your sweet spot or close to your sweet spot, but you're a little over, like say you're injecting every other day or every third day. If you switch to daily injections, you're almost then definitely going to get the estrogen where you need it to be. And that's where daily injections make sense. If you're going to do daily injections, and have to have that inconvenience of injecting every single day, you're going to want as surefire of a chance to reach your estrogen sweet zone for sexual function. The only way you can do that is with low doses. Now, say you find your lower dose of testosterone, above which you have dick problems and below which you start to feel a little tired, have low estrogen symptoms. So you're right around your sweet spot in estradiol, and you do daily injections, and you get even closer, and things feel really incredible. The way to fuck that up is to do sub-Q injections. You do sub-Q, and for a good percentage of people, they're going to aromatize more via a longer aromatization tail via the slower absorption and a lot of aromatase activity in subcutaneous fat tissue. And at the same time, the lower you go on testosterone, the lower the peaks of the main hormone that you really need for erection, sensation, libido, and all that, which is DHT or dihydrotestosterone, the lower the DHT is going to be. So you're sort of at this kind of point where it's like when you're down there, again, you want to maximize every single part of the protocol you can to get estrogen where it needs to be and get DHT as high as it needs to be. And the way to do that would be to peak the DHT a little higher. And you can only do that via putting the needle into the muscle. Because then you got all this vascular tissue where the testosterone enters the depot, and it's a faster uptake, faster absorption, and therefore a slightly better peak in dihydrotestosterone. And ultimately, people find going IM versus sub-Q that they have a little less aromatization, even though that sounds counter to what you've heard on Reddit. So now let's revise. You're at your 112 milligrams of testosterone a week. You got a baseline of HCG at 150 IU every day, doing that sub-Q. Your injection is with a 5/8 inch needle. Again, these are the king needles for TRT. They're right in the middle. You're guaranteed to get the muscle if you're hitting the upper glute or if you're hitting the delt. But you're doing daily and you're doing intramuscular injections. Quite honestly, the upper glute is the best place. Now there, you've got enough of a peak for DHT, and just by chance, if you don't, you could just put a little bit of transscrotal cream, half a pump, a quarter of a pump of low concentration stuff, and you're going to get that DHT from that. You get enough of a peak, of testosterone, but it isn't some super substantial peak where, again, you're trying to reach this sweet spot zone where estradiol doesn't go above range. It stays in your range, but you get enough DHT and you get enough of a hit of testosterone, so you're not sitting there starved of test, which some people end up being on lower doses sub-Q because there's just not enough at once. And then you're able to find your sweet spot, and daily injections finally make sense. Let's go to Steroid Plotter for a second and just kind of plot this out. 28 milligrams a day is close to 200 milligrams a week. In fact, that would be, 28 times 7 is 196. So you're at 196 milligrams a week doing 28 milligrams a day. This is case in point. If you're doing this every day with testosterone cypionate, 28 milligrams, ultimately your test, at least according to Steroid Plotter, is going to 1,135. Very rarely are you at 1,135 nanograms per deciliter and estrogen is in range, except for when you're using transscrotal cream, because the DHT balances out that estrogen. It converts more to DHT and less to estradiol, and that ends up working. So it's kind of like having your cake and eat it too, and that's why cream is so good. But on injections, dude, you do this daily, all you're doing is like wasting precious time, causing more puncture spots, having to deal with the inconvenience of doing daily injections. But at 1,135, or 1,140 here, ultimately, the estradiol is not going to be in range, boys. It's very rare that on injections that happens. Now, if you had knocked this down to something like 16 milligrams a day, again, 8 units on an insulin syringe, just to be a total of 112. This is the 112 milligram per week testosterone protocol that I'm discussing here. And you plot that out, well, look where you're ending up in total test. Very reasonable, okay? You're not going to be like super anabolic. You might need a little Anavar if you want to build substantial muscle. You can still slowly build muscle on this. But which is more to land you where you aromatize into the sexual sweet spot? 1135 or 650 nanograms per deciliter? This is where daily injections make sense. At the lower doses, boys. It is largely mythological and steers people in the wrong direction with broken protocols when they do daily injections on higher end doses, mid to higher end doses of testosterone. You are absolutely positively wasting your time. The whole goal of daily injections is to control metabolites, mainly estradiol, and you're not going to do that on higher doses of testosterone regardless, unless you're super, super, super optimized and you don't use HCG. And most people can't really tolerate not using HCG, or sex function is a lot better when they use HCG. So what you're better off doing is going down to a lower dose in this case, if you're that subset of individual, doing daily injections then. controlling the estradiol, that is first and foremost for dick function and sexual function. Then you have options. See, it opens up options. If you're not getting enough DHT with the 105 to 112 milligram dose of testosterone doing daily injections, which is entirely possible that you don't get enough DHT or as much as you might need, at least the estrogen's in range, and you can use transdermal DHT, or you can use Proviron for that, non-aromatizable. You get the extra DHT, or you can use a little bit of test cream. Again, a low concentration, a quarter of a pump, a half a pump, maybe even a full pump a day, depending on what you can tolerate on the scrotum, and then you get the DHT that counterbalances estradiol further. You're unlikely to go over range with those microdoses of testosterone cream, and then you're dialed in. If you end up with enough DHT at those lower doses of testosterone and estrogen is in range, but you're just not as anabolic, that's when you can bring in 5 milligrams to 10 milligrams of Anavar a day. Major point is you're on higher doses of test, and you think that, going to daily injections because your clinic said it, because they're just repeating the fucking gospel. And they've got 17,000 patients that they can't individually work with to dial in the right way, like a coach would. That's where we're valuable, because we'll work with you. We don't have 17,000 people. I've got like 30 clients at a time, max. You're not doing much with the daily injections at high doses. And when you get down lower, that's where it makes sense. And you could add some ancillaries to get you the DHT you need. But importantly, your estrogen is in range. All right, boys, as I said in the beginning, this is the biggest discount I've ever run on coaching. The summer months are slow, admittedly, for us, so my loss is your gain. We're just running specials on it. It's 50% off, either 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or a year. Those of you that have been thinking about doing a year, that's $23,000. You split that in half, you're saving 12 grand. With the 3 month, which is normally $5K or something, you're getting it for $2,500. I mean, these are real numbers. The 1 month, you're getting it for $999. The 6 months, you're getting that for $4,500. These are substantially more expensive based on the time spent and the stuff that we do and all the protocols that we work through. So coach discount is the discount code. If you're thinking about coaching, there is no better time than right now. Code and link to book me is in the description. I will get with you within 24 hours, and we start. Source list, everything you could possibly need, including probably the most valuable thing, which is the 20% DHT gel. 30% off, guys. 30% off the source list. Instant download. You get it right away. Punch in that code on the screen, and happy hunting. Again, if you're trying to dial in on testosterone cypionate, mastering testosterone cypionate is the video course to get. I built it. It's specifically for libido and erections. Regarding coaching, I've got 25 slots filled. I'm ending the special at 30. Yesterday, there were 4 booked. So, I mean, you're pushing it if you want to wait. Largely for restoring libido and erections and optimizing sexual function on TRT. Book me in under a minute, livecortex.com. All right, I'm happy that you guys stuck with me through thanks for being here today, because hold on. What's wrong with this chair? God. Ugh. Sorry. Thanks for watching, guys. I'd really appreciate it if you would like. Mike. I keep forgetting about the mic. Let me just grab it. Sorry, guys. Give me this thing! God. The video's over. Been a pleasure hanging out with you. If you would do me 2 favors, please, and like the video, it makes a huge difference to the algorithm and YouTube, suggesting our channel out to other people. Secondarily, if you're new to this channel, we break down all this stuff every day for many, many years prior and forever in the time continuum. I'd love to have you on board as a subscriber. Otherwise, kick ass, rock on. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week. More content coming tomorrow. Live stream Saturday between 9 and 11 a.m. Eastern time. So be there. You guys rock. Appreciate the fact that you've been with me. And I'll talk to you boys on the next one.